Right, thank you very much, Louise, for giving an overview of the CHERISH work on the terrestrial side. So a lot of different techniques that are being applied there, from the photos, the UAV, the GNS surveys, and then tying that into the climate data. And certainly I remember hearing about the sunbeam, first of all, in a 3 kilometer change. So really seeing the big impacts of weather and climate on our heritage. So we're now joined by a number of panelists. We had Elias was talking at the start on the coastal archaeology and research in Brittany and Northwest Iberia. We're joined by his colleague Marie-Yvonne from Guadeloupe. She's ringing in from there. So she'll be able to answer some of the questions that were about the ALERT project and that were covered by Elias. We had Sarah Miller from FPAN. She was talking about the community engagement and monitoring in Florida and beyond, with the scaling up for the rest of the USA and the strength of community engagement on a local level. She's currently not with us, but we're hoping that she's going to join in. She's coming from America. The third talk was Kathy. She is here with us, so thanks, Kathy. Talking about the Leggett project, so the climate data and monuments, and looking at the impact that climate is having on the actual structure of what the monuments are composed of. And then we wrapped it all up with Louise from CHERISH, so giving a great overview on the work that we're doing, and obviously that ties in with the other projects that or the other talks that have gone on earlier today. So we actually have a few talks or a few questions in. So I'm going to start with Aliases and the ALERT project. So Marie-Yvonne, this is for you. The first one that we got was, and apology for the pronunciation, Carmen, but Carmen Cuenca Garcia asking if you will be able to expand a little bit more on the experiences of the ALERT project using geophysical surveying at your sites. And so you're wondering, like, what specific techniques you used and why did you choose them? So I was wondering if you might be able to address that.
Could you just my connection is not very good. Just precise the question.
Yes. So the question is, what geophysical surveying was applied,
okay.
And are there reasons why you chose that techniques?
Okay, I understand. In the first stage of the project, we have used 3D scanning of the sites, but in fact, as the changes are very fast, we decided, and this technology is quite heavy to manage on the field, and then we decided to go more to faster techniques such as photogrammetry, especially photogrammetry. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And do you know, Marie-Yvonne, that this is coming from Ted of the CHERISH project in terms of the geophysics and what was applied maybe before you moved on to the photogrammetry? Did salinity have an impact on the geophysics that were done at your site?
Salinity?
Salinity.
No, I don't think so. In fact, no, it doesn't have a, I don't think. Oh, okay. Given we have no elements for the moment.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. No, thanks for that. Kathy, I might move on to you then. And here's a question that's come through Slido, which is, can you take into consideration joints and faults in the rock as well as the rock type for weathering?
Yeah, well, joints and faults would tend to be would often concentrate weaknesses, would concentrate weathering in those areas because they tend to represent weaknesses. The Leggett itself doesn't take that into account because they're very small, 50 millimeter cubed of cut stone. So we don't have those. So they don't, what they represent really is kind of carved detail, or so they, yeah, sorry, I'm not answering that question very clearly. They're not mimicking natural stone. They're very much representing worked stone and processes, surface and near surface weathering processes in stone. But yeah, for sure, if there are natural flaws or if there are joints, those are often areas where weathering gets concentrated in reality. But because the legate is so small, it should respond actually quicker than larger blocks of masonry. So in that way, it's that's the canary in the coal mine idea, that it's actually more sensitive to weathering impacts.
Because the legate project, as it stands, is a pilot one. What are your plans, or are there plans to then extend it, and how are you looking to maybe expand on that? Because it was very interesting seeing the tie-in between the climate variables and the actual impact to the exposed stone.
Yeah, so the ideal scenario is that it's at more sites, and that it's at sites where there's also climate monitoring, because it's very important to have the link between the two. At the moment for Skellig and for Brew, I'm using climate data that's between 20 and 30 kilometers away, the Met stations. So that's not ideal. So what I'd like to do is expand it and have climate monitoring at the sites as well. Yeah, but that's about really looking for funding for it. But yeah, that's the ideal scenario. And maybe also look at photogrammetry or something like that. When I started in 2011, it wasn't so easy to do, and now the technology has moved on so much that I think that is a more cheap and accessible technique that we could look at.
Mm-hmm. No, very definitely. And I was struck by, and you raised it in the talk, the difference between Skellig Michael and the other sites that you were looking at in terms of all climate variabilities. But based on the results so far, like, what are your thoughts on what's the main climate variable that's impacting the weathering, or is there a number that are interacting to make the changes?
Yeah, so far I think it's rainfall. It's rainfall, but in combination. So on Skellig, you're seeing rainfall in combination with wind, and you're getting a lot of surface erosion, and really severe rainfall. But then in places like Clonmacnoise, you've got a lot of rainfall as well, but very mild temperatures, and you don't have so much wind, and that's where we're getting the most microbiological growth. So it's not rainfall by itself, but I think precipitation is key to most of the processes that I'm looking at. Yeah.
Excellent. No, thank you very much. Louise, I'll move on to you. And I know, Sandra Henry is also joining us as well to assist with any kind of like Irish baser and bring her expertise into the talks as well. But we have a question here from Carmen Cuenca Garcia again, which is, beyond the preparation for excavation and general characterization, does CHERISH use ground-based geophysical techniques into, strictly speaking, monitoring?
Yes, we do. I'm sorry, my phone's just gone.
The alarm's going off.
I can answer something towards that. In Ireland, we are using it in the sense of identifying any of the buried archaeology associated with the visible archaeology on the surface. So it's definitely something we're implementing so that we're understanding the extent of sites we're working on and what area needs to be monitored along the coastlines. Sorry.
I'm very sorry. That was a moment phone call that never happens, but suddenly
Perfect
did.
timing for Sandra to be there. It was ideal. So Sandra, thanks for jumping in. Louise, you want to jump back in and say from a Welsh perspective?
Yeah, the geophysical survey and prospection is always one of the essential toolkits that we use for our understanding and survey of a site. And for example, at sites such as Dinas Dinllé, where we've been doing so much work, it was always the essential piece to help us target our work, to target where we wanted to undertake the excavations. And that was both to target excavations, both for threat, but also to extend our knowledge of the area. So it was covering many areas, but we see it as essential for targeting and for future reconnaissance as well.
Excellent, thanks. And what I'll put to the CHERISH team again as well. So maybe Louise and then Sandra. Well, sorry, actually, Sandra, this one's for you. It's from Anthony Brogan. And how can a one-stop shop for all coastal data sets and surveys be developed and made available to key policymakers at a key time in Ireland for maritime and coastal zone planning? So how can a one-stop shop be generated in Ireland?
Yeah, I think there's actually something that Cathy will be able to comment on as well. At the moment, based upon the climate change strategy by National Monument Service, they're looking at the development of such a portal to offer one-stop shop for researchers, different stakeholders, policymakers, to be able to access the different data sets, and so people, I suppose, are aware of the different type of data that is available. So I guess the approach that they're taking to doing this is bringing all the relevant stakeholders on board, and then establishing a portal whereby these data sets are available to everyone. Projects such as the CHERISH project is all open source, so I think having open source data helps a lot as well. And also the availability of data. Obviously some private data collection won't be made available to everyone, but for that type of portal to be developed, it's something that will take quite a number of years. You know, it's a substantial undertaking to develop a portal and gather all the data sets and make it accessible to everyone. I don't know if Cathy wants to comment further on that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's recognised within the sector that it's really badly needed, and there have been efforts. So there are different sort of data sets out there, but it's really about bringing them together and finding the gaps and filling the gaps. And I think Christine Baker found that when she was doing her study in Fingal, that there were a number of gaps. But I would say even beyond that, the heritage sector need to look at all the other data sets that are out there that we could use. So like the idea of the legate, for example, is creating an indicator. And there's lots of indicators that other sectors like natural heritage use, which we could capitalize on. So we don't necessarily need to create a lot of new data sets, although we need some of those as well. But we need to start, reaching out and making use of the existing ones, because that's more sort of resource efficient, and creating those partnerships and working interdisciplinary. And there are websites like Climate Ireland that seek to kind of do that, to bring data from different sectors together, make it publicly accessible. So hopefully that's just something that's going to really grow and grow quickly, because it's really important.
Very definitely, and if I can share as well, follow up on that. I think you hit it there that maybe it doesn't need new ideas, and that there are a number of repositories where this data exists. And here in the Geological Survey, the Open Topographic Viewer, we're hosting a lot of coastal LiDAR data. The OPW have recently gone into arrangement, and that data is becoming available through the GSI data servers, and other institutions have similar ones. What's also coming on stream is the National Geoscience Data Centre, which are, well, geoscience related, something similar like that for coastal ones, I think, as you say, is much needed. Can I put that question to you, Marie-Yvonne, as well, and get the European perspective on that? And is there in France and Spain, on where you work, a coastal data center, or is it something that still needs working towards?
In fact, I will answer for France, because for Spain, I can start, because in fact in Spain it doesn't exist any national system or network on these topics, and only the projects are local initiatives, such as the one developed by Elias on the coast of Galicia, for example. And in France, the situation is quite complicated, because heritage is managed by the Culture Ministry, but there is a quite hard limit frontier between the DPM, the heritage underwater or on the shore, and the terrestrial one. And in fact, our issues concern the whole coastal areas, including the submarine with a low fence and the terrestrial. And then in France, we have two systems, two national databases, which are not connected each other only because they don't use the same coordinate system. And it's very difficult to combine both of them, two power centers and two managing authorities. And this is quite complicated situation. That's why our projects propose to have a whole approaches on coastal areas.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. No, thank you very much. And while we still have you, Marie-Yvonne, the scaling up of projects. Elias was talking about the alert project, and then sort of being starting off as being trans-regional and then going transnational. And I think you mentioned as well about future work in the West Indies. And I was wondering if you have kind of like main lessons learned or a short bit on your experience on scaling up a project from, say, like 1 or 2 sites to a larger area, and maybe some key points for overcoming the difficulties.
Yes, our experience is that it takes a long time to build a network of, as you have seen, the Alert and Aloha project as based on the building of networks of volunteers and coastal guards in order to have a continuity in the surveys. And in fact, it takes a long time. In Brittany, in fact, we started 30 years ago to build this network of volunteers, coastal surveys, and so on. And in Guadeloupe, we are currently trying to develop this network, but we know very well that it will take some years. And the problem is generally that our projects are funded only for 2 or 3 years. And in fact, it takes a lot of time to build this. So this is perhaps our main experience on both projects. And that's why we try to base our network on institutions such as Conservatoire du Littoral, for example, and have specific surveys for the coast guards who generally are quite young people in charge for several years or several decades, and then they probably will be able to transmit to future generation.
Excellent. No, thank you very much, and I have to echo that with the CHERISH project as well, and it's the longevity of the institutions that will then continue beyond the lifetime of projects that help to overcome, as Kathy pointed out, some of the issues with ongoing monitoring, and with those coming to a close at the end of projects. So I'd like to, I think, at this stage, just to say thank you very much to all the speakers. We covered a lot in this session. I'm sorry that Sarah wasn't able to join us for the Q&A, but a lot of her experiences in FPAN, I think, were echoed in some of the other projects. And what struck me about her project was the importance on, building on other projects. And Marie-Yvonne, you touched on that there, of getting the experience when you move into new areas to not to reinvent the wheel, to use existing networks and experiences to ensure the success of the project, and for that then to feed up into higher levels and ultimately to try and sort of like impact policy and the preservation of these very important sites. So speakers, all, thank you very much for the talks. Thank you for joining for this Q&A. You guys out there, thank you as well for staying with us and for attending it, and for the questions that have come through. It was a very enjoyable session, and I think fits in very nicely in the rest of the CHERISH conference. So we're coming up to a 15-minute break. After this break, when we return, is the live panel session. So that starts at 15:45. There's Tom Dawson, Virginia Tian, and William McGarry are joining us. It's going to be chaired by Koen Verbruggen of the Geological Survey. And I think we'll touch on a lot of the themes that have been coming up throughout the conference. So those of the climate data itself, engagement with community, and the longevity of projects as well, and how their impact can continue. So, Gurmila Mahagwif, Slán Liv, thanks very much, and